Now, you'd think that the expulsion of high commissioners on both sides, the withdrawal of diplomats, and very incendiary statements issued by both sides, Canada and India, is the worst that relations could possibly get. But I'm here to tell you that you'd be wrong, because there are many more escalatory options on both sides that could still happen, that could make Indo-Canadian relations even worse than they already are. I know it's hard to believe, but here are some of the things that India possibly can do. Option number one, India could forge partnerships with very good non-Canadian universities to absorb the demand of Indian students. Nearly 250,000 Indian students currently study in Canada. If India were to somehow pull the plug and bar Indian students from studying in Canada, it would have a devastating impact. It could paralyze Canada's education financial system, into which billions in Indian fees actually go. Action number two, that's possible. What if India cancels all OCI cards of Canadian desis who are seen to be supporting Khalistan? The impact it would have, Khalistanis will think twice about supporting this so-called movement. Action number three, possibly, suspend property rights of Khalistani supporters until new visas are issued, and that will, of course, take its own time and will require more stringent scrutiny and procedures. The impact of this is Khalistanis could en masse give up support to this ridiculous non-movement that's being supported by the Canadian government. Action number four, suspend multiple entry visas to suspect Canadian desis. Impact, community level blowback against the Trudeau government will happen, and it will have a viral effect. It is one of the options that the Indian government may be considering at this point. Action number five, activate trade sanctions against Canada, just like Canada is considering against India. As a top 10 trading partner of Canada, it could cost Canada billions of dollars in profits. And remember, there is a huge imbalance as far as trade is concerned. India is in a position of advantage as far as Canada is concerned. It would have a major impact. Remember, there are many financial institutions, pension funds that have billions of dollars in investments and exposures here in India. Should the government at some appropriate level decide to freeze assets or take some kind of action in that respect, while unlikely, the fact that things are escalating in such an aggressive and belligerent manner means nothing can or should be ruled out. I want to bring in India Today's Shashank Bhattu, who's been looking at the nuts and bolts of what has been one of the most dramatic 24 hours in anything we've covered in diplomacy. Shashank, I wonder if you feel the same. And most of us are wondering how much worse it can get. I've listed some of the things that the Indian government could possibly take action on, in case there are further provocations from Canada. But what are you hearing from within the system? I think the Indian government has signaled that it is in a absolutely no mood to take anything lying down. But the big question is, what could we see happen next between the two countries?
Well, Shiv, you very rightly began by talking about trade and the impact of billions of dollars of trade that India and Canada have with each other. Well, the simple fact of the matter is that there's a free trade agreement that is on the anvil between India and Canada, and that conversation is not going to be going anywhere. We know that Canadian super funds, asset management companies, etc., want to invest a lot in India. They have invested billions in this country, and presumably they would want to do more because, as you very rightly pointed out, the Canadian economy is not in a good way right now. It wants to exploit markets like India with its 1.4 billion people. And India, of course, if Canada and India, these political tensions continue, that is going to be something that Canadian businesses will hate to miss out on because of Justin Trudeau's inept handling of the crisis. India, you personally, I think, have also pointed out, some of the collaborations on defense, for example. I can recall from my own reporting that Canada has wanted to do things like defense exercises with India that would benefit its own military. That seems increasingly difficult. You yourself have talked about, the potential impact on deals like the Striker vehicle system. That's going to be something that's going to be important to look at. I think what India is also going to do is really go on a diplomatic offensive now and try to shore up support from countries that basically go to them and say that, look, are you going to back Justin Trudeau, someone who has offended pretty much everyone in international politics, whether that be his own people, whether that be China, whether that be India, whether that be his own partners in the G7. Are you really going to back him, or are you going to back India, the partner that you want to work with? So you can already see the impacts of this already happening Justin Trudeau and his people have been going around to the G7 countries saying that we have the support of Five Eyes nations. Well, Australia is a Five Eyes nation. Its minister is here right now in India, unveiling new visas for young Indians going into Australia. They're not interested in getting involved in what's happening here. The Prime Minister of the UK has been spoken to by the Canadians. The UK hasn't even released a statement acknowledging this conversation. So already you're seeing New Zealand also released a statement saying that look, we're not getting involved in what's happening between India and Canada. So you're already seeing this massive diplomatic isolation. India is going to step up that pressure diplomatically to make sure and really put that stark choice in front of people. And Canada is going to realize very, very soon that it is isolated. It does not have the support it needs. So it's going to be a diplomatic humiliation as well as economic trouble and defense trouble for Canada.
Very interesting. And we're going to have to see, which of these options India actually activates depending on how Canada chooses to escalate. The point is, Trudeau has already pushed the boat way too far out to sea now to pull it back. The dogs of war, as it were, have been released, and it would be an embarrassing slight on his own reputation if he were to suddenly and abruptly scale down the intensity of his attack on India right now. So the war is being waged. It can only get worse. Shashank, appreciate it. Thanks very much for putting that into perspective for us.